Commander Taman stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the last free world in the outer rim burn. Through the large window, he could see the massive Vorthok ships hanging in space like giant metal beasts. They were bigger than mountains, darker than the space between stars. Their weapons fired again and again, turning cities into dust and oceans into steam. "Sir, we have to run," said his second officer, a young man whose hands shook as he spoke. "If we stay here, they will destroy us too." Taman did not answer right away. He had seen this happen 37 times before. 37 worlds, 37 civilizations, all gone, all burned to nothing by the Vorthok Empire. His people, the Kalani, had been the first to fall 100 years ago. Now he fought for anyone who would still fight back. "Send the order," he said quietly. "All ships retreat to the sanctuary base." The small fleet of mixed alien ships turned away from the dying planet. They were all that was left of the Free Coalition, maybe 50 ships against an empire that had thousands. It was not enough. It had never been enough. As they jumped to hyperspace, Taman looked back one last time. The planet was already gray and lifeless. In a few hours, the Vorthok would strip it bare of all resources. Any survivors would be taken as slaves. This was how the Vorthok Empire worked. They did not just conquer, they erased. Dr. Hyjin walked through the medical bay of Sanctuary Base. Looking at the refugees from the latest attack, men, women, and children from dozens of different species lay on beds. Their bodies hurt, their minds broken. She had been documenting the Vorthok's crimes for 20 years now. The files filled entire databanks. "Doctor," called a nurse, "the human observer wants to see you." Hyjin sighed. The humans had sent only one person to watch the war. Captain Junho. His species was young, barely out of their own solar system. They had no idea what real war looked like. Earth was far away, safe from the Vorthok threat. For now, she found Captain Junho in the communication center, staring at reports. On a large screen, he was a tall man with dark hair and serious eyes. Like all humans, he looked fragile compared to the other species in the galaxy. "Captain," she said, "what do you need?" "These numbers," he said, pointing to the screen. "Are they correct?" "The Vorthok have really destroyed over 3,000 worlds. That is the official count," Hyjin replied, "but we think the real number is higher. Many worlds were destroyed before anyone could send a message." Captain Junho was quiet for a long moment. "My government wants to know if the coalition can hold them back, if they can protect Earth." Hyjin looked at him with sad eyes. "Captain, we cannot protect ourselves. Every day, we lose more ships, more worlds, more people. The Vorthok are too strong, their technology is too advanced, their numbers are too great." "Then what happens when they reach human space?" "The same thing that happened to everyone else," she said softly. "Your people will fight, your people will die, and then your people will be forgotten." In the command center of Sanctuary Base, Admiral Suben studied the latest intelligence reports. The news was bad, as always. The Vorthok were moving faster now, taking 3 or 4 worlds at the same time. Their war prime Kruvax seemed to be in a hurry to finish his conquest of the galaxy. "Admiral," said Lieutenant Minho, running up to her desk. "We have intercepted Vorthok communications. They are planning something big." Subin looked at the young intelligence officer. "What kind of big?" "They call it the final sweep. In 6 months, they will launch attacks on all remaining free worlds at the same time. They want to end the war quickly." Subin felt her heart sink. 6 months. That was not enough time to build more ships, train more soldiers, or find new allies. The Free Coalition had fought for 100 years, but they were tired. They were few, they were weak. "How many ships will they use?" she asked. "Our best guess is 20,000. Minho replied, "Maybe more. 20,000 ships." The coalition had less than 200 combat vessels left. It was not a war anymore. It was an execution. Captain Junho sent his daily report to Earth Command, as he had done every day for 3 years. He tried to make it sound hopeful, but the truth was clear. The Free Coalition was dying. Soon, the Vorthok would control the entire galaxy. He had learned much about the enemy during his time at Sanctuary Base. The Vorthok were not just conquerors, they were systematic destroyers. They had a plan for every species they met. First, they would attack the military. Then they would bomb the cities. Then they would take the survivors as slaves. Finally, they would strip the planet of all resources and leave it dead. But the worst part was not what they took, it was what they destroyed. Art, music, literature, history, everything that made a species unique was burned away. The Vorthok did not want subjects. They wanted empty shells that could work in their mines and factories. Jun-Ho had seen the slave camps through captured footage. Millions of beings from hundreds of different worlds, all working together in silence. Their cultures were gone, their languages were forbidden. Their names were replaced with numbers. They were alive, but they were not living. As he finished his report, Junho wondered what would happen when the Vorthok reached Earth. Would humanity fight? Would they surrender? Would they even have a choice? Warprime Kruvax stood in the command center of his flagship, the Devourer. The massive ship was the size of a small moon, armed with enough weapons to destroy a star. Around him, thousands of Vorthok officers worked at their stations, planning the next phase of the conquest. "Report," he commanded. "The Outer Rim is nearly cleared," Warprime said, his chief officer. "Only a few dozen worlds remain uncovered. The Free Coalition has retreated to their hidden base, and the humans, still watching, still sending reports to their homeworld. They do not seem to understand the danger they face." Kruvax made a sound that might have been laughter. "Young species always think they are special. They think they can hide, or run, or fight. They never learn until it is too late." He turned to look at the star map that covered one wall of the command center. Most of the galaxy was colored red now, showing Vorthok control. Only a few patches of blue remained, marking the last free worlds. "Begin the final sweep," he ordered. "I want every remaining world conquered within 6 months. Leave no survivors. Who might remember the old ways?" "Yes, Warprime." As his officers began to work, Kruvax thought about the hundreds of species he had conquered. Each one had believed they were the chosen ones, the special ones, the ones who would find a way to win. Each one had been wrong. The galaxy belonged to the Vorthok now. Soon, even the humans would learn this truth. The stars were dying, and there was no one left to save them. Dr. Hyjin was working late in her laboratory when the computer made a strange sound. It was 3 in the morning, ship time, and most of the base was asleep. She had been studying Vorthok communication patterns, trying to find any weakness in their coordination. "What is it now?" she said to herself, looking at the screen. The computer showed a signal coming from deep space. It was not like anything she had seen before. The pattern was complex, organized, and clearly made by intelligent beings. But it was coming from the dead zone, a part of space where no one lived, where no ships traveled. She ran the signal through her analysis programs. The results made her heart beat faster. The signal was not random. It was not natural. Someone or something was sending it on purpose. "Computer, identify the source," she said. "Unknown," the machine replied. "Signal originates from grid section 7 Alpha, beyond the Outer Rim. No known civilizations in that area." Hyjin stared at the screen. Grid section 7 Alpha was marked as dead space on every star map. Ships that went there never came back. Most people thought it was just empty void, dangerous to navigate. But someone was out there. Someone was sending signals. She saved the data and decided to show it to others in the morning. This was too important to keep secret. Engineer Dongwu was having his morning coffee when Dr. Hyjin burst into the communication center. She looked excited and scared at the same time. "Dongwu, I need your help," she said, placing a data pad in front of him. "Look." At this signal, Dongwu was the best engineer on Sanctuary Base. He had worked with alien technology for 20 years and could decode almost any communication system. He looked at the data and whistled softly. "Where did this come from?" he asked. "The dead zone, section 7 Alpha. That's impossible. Nothing lives out there." "That's what I thought too. But look at the pattern. Look at the complexity. This is not natural." Dongwu ran the signal through his best decoding programs. The computer worked for an hour, trying different languages and communication protocols. Finally, it found something. "Hyjin," he said quietly, "you need to see this." On the screen, words appeared in several languages. Most were alien, but some were familiar. "Too familiar, is that, human writing?" Hyjin asked. "Not just human, these are military codes. Old ones, very old." Dongwu looked confused. "But they're mixed with technology signatures I've never seen before. Someone took human communication protocols and made them much more advanced." "How advanced?" "Maybe 100 years ahead of current human technology, maybe more." Hyjin felt cold. "The humans have only been in space for 50 years. How can they have technology that advanced?" "They can't," Dongwu said. Unless what? "Unless some humans have been out there much longer than we thought." Admiral Subin was not happy to be woken up at dawn. She was even less happy when she saw the data that Hyjin and Dongwu brought to her. "You're telling me that someone in the dead zone is sending signals using human technology?" she said. "Yes, Admiral. But not normal human technology. This is far beyond anything Earth has ever built." Subin looked at the decoded fragments on the screen. The words were in human languages, but they contained technical information that seemed impossible. "Have you told the human observer about this?" "Not yet," Hyjin said. "We wanted to talk to you first." "Good, don't tell him anything yet. I want to know more about this signal before we involve the humans." She turned to Dongwu. "Can you trace where it's going?" "I've been trying. The signal is very focused, very directed. It's not broadcasting to everyone. It's sending information to specific locations." "Which locations?" "That's the strange part. It's communicating with Vorthok ships." The room went quiet. Subin felt her blood turn cold. "Are you saying the humans are working with the "I don't know what I'm saying," Dongwu replied. "The signal is watching Vorthok movements, tracking their communications, learning their patterns, but it's not helping them. It's studying them. Like a spy, like a hunter studying its prey." Captain Junho was reviewing supply reports when his personal communication device activated. The message was encrypted with codes he had never seen before. Captain Junho, the message began. This is Deep Space Command. Project Horizon has been activated. Prepare for contact. Junho stared at the message. He had never heard of Project Horizon. As the human observer, he was supposed to know about all Earth operations in this sector. He tried to contact Earth Command through normal channels. Earth Command, this is Captain Junho. I need verification of a message regarding Project Horizon. The reply came back quickly. Negative, Captain. We have no record of any Project Horizon. We did not send any such message. Junho felt confused and worried. If Earth Command didn't send the message, who did? And how did they know his personal codes? He decided to investigate quietly. He accessed the human database and searched for any mention of Project Horizon. Nothing. He searched for any deep space missions that might be operating in secret. Nothing. But then he found something strange. In the old files, going back 50 years, there were references to ships that had been lost in deep space. Ships that had gone to explore the far edges of the galaxy and never returned. Most were listed as lost to navigation error or destroyed by unknown forces, but a few had different notations, reassigned to deep operations or transferred to special command. Junho had never heard of deep operations or special command. Analyst Minho was tracking Vorthok patrol movements when something unusual happened. 3 Vorthok scout ships had been sent to investigate the dead zone. They had been ordered to find the source of the strange signals. Minho watched their progress on the tracking screen. The ships entered grid section 7 Alpha and moved deeper into the void. Then, one by one, their signals disappeared. Admiral, he called to Subin, you need to see this. Subin came to his station. What is it? The Vorthok sent scouts to investigate the signal source. They just vanished. Vanished how? Were they destroyed? No debris, no distress calls, no energy signatures. They just stopped existing. Subin looked at the empty space on the screen where the Vorthok ships had been. How many ships? 3 heavy scouts. Each one had a crew of 50, and no trace of them at all. Nothing. It's like they never existed. Subin was quiet for a long moment. The Vorthok were the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Their ships were nearly indestructible. Their technology was centuries ahead of anyone else's. What could make 3 of their ships simply disappear? Send a message to all coalition ships, she said. No one is to approach the dead zone without my direct authorization. Yes, Admiral. As Minho sent the message, Subin wondered what they were dealing with. The mysterious signal was clearly not friendly to the Vorthok, but was it friendly to them? Warprime Kruvax was angry. He stood in his command center, looking at the spot where his 3 scout ships had been. How do 3 ships just disappear? He demanded. We don't know. Warprime, his chief officer replied. They sent no distress signals. They reported no enemy contact. They were simply ... gone. What was their last transmission? Scout leader Vex reported, entering the target area. He said they were detecting unusual energy readings. Then, nothing. Kruvax had conquered hundreds of worlds. He had faced every kind of enemy. But he had never seen anything like this. Ships didn't just vanish. Something had destroyed them so quickly and completely that they couldn't even send a warning. Send a full battle group to investigate, he ordered. Sir, perhaps we should wait until we know what we're dealing with. No, Kruvax's voice echoed through the command center. Nothing threatens the Vorthok Empire. Nothing hides from us. I want that area searched and destroyed. Yes, Swa Prime, as his officers prepared the battle group. Kruvax stared at the star map. For the first time in his long career, he felt something he had not experienced in decades. Fear something was out there in the darkness. Something that could destroy Vorthok ships without a trace. Something that was watching them, studying them, waiting, but waiting for what? Back on Sanctuary Base, Dr. Hyjin was working late again when the mysterious signal changed. Instead of the complex technical data, it was now sending something simpler. Something that made her hands shake as she read it. We have been watching. We have been learning. We have been waiting. The time has come. The message repeated in dozens of languages, including human, but, at the end, there was something new. Something that made her call Admiral Subin immediately. Admiral, you need to get down here right now. What is it? The signal. It's changed. It's talking to us. When Subin arrived, she found Hyjin staring at the screen with wide eyes. Look at this, Hyjin said, pointing to the translation. Subin read the message. At the end, in simple human text, were the words, to all free people of the galaxy, help is coming. Hold on a little longer. The Baikdu. What does Baikdu mean? Subin asked. It's human, Hyjin said quietly. It's the name of a mountain. On Earth, a very famous mountain. Why would someone name a ship after a mountain? I don't know. But whoever they are, they're not the humans we know. Subin looked at the message again. Help was coming. After 100 years of losing, someone was finally promising help. But who were they? And what made them think they could succeed where everyone else had failed? In the darkness of space, the space near the Kepler Nebula began to bend and twist. Admiral Subin watched from the bridge of her command ship as reality itself seemed to break apart. The stars stretched like rubber. The darkness rippled like water. "What are we looking at?" she asked her science officer. "I don't know, Admiral. The sensors are showing impossible readings. Space is ... folding." Every ship in the area had stopped to watch. Coalition vessels, trade ships, even a few Vorthok patrol boats hung motionless in space, their crews staring at the growing distortion. Then something emerged from the twisted space. It was a ship, but unlike any ship ever built. 3 kilometers long, it moved through space like a living thing. Its hull was not metal or ceramic, but something that seemed to shift and change as they watched. Dark gray at one moment, silver the next, sometimes almost transparent. "My God," whispered Captain Junho, who had come to the bridge to watch. "What is that thing?" The ship had no visible engines, no weapon ports, no communication arrays. It was smooth and organic, like it had been grown rather than built. But despite its strange appearance, there was something undeniably powerful about it, something that made everyone who saw it feel small. "Admiral," said the communication officer, "we're getting a signal from the ship. Put it through." The voice that came through the speakers was human, but there was something different about it, something that made Subin's skin crawl. "This is Captain Kyungzu of the Earth vessel Baekdu. We need to talk." The meeting took place on Sanctuary Base. Captain Kyungzu came alone, arriving in a small shuttle that was just as strange as his ship. When he stepped out, everyone could see he was human, but barely. He was tall and lean, with dark hair and pale skin, but his eyes were wrong. They were too bright, too aware, like they could see things that others couldn't. When he moved, it was with perfect grace, as if every step was calculated. "Captain Kyungsu," Admiral Subin said, extending her hand. "Welcome to Sanctuary Base." He looked at her hand for a moment before shaking it. His grip was strong, but his skin felt strangely warm. "Thank you, Admiral. I know you have questions. Many questions, starting with who you are and where you came from." Captain Kyungsu smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I am what humans become when they stop being just human. As for where I came from the place where your people go to die." The room fell silent. Captain Junho stepped forward. "Captain, I'm the human observer here. I've never heard of any Earthship called the Baekdu." "That's because the Baekdu was never launched from Earth," Kyungsu replied. "It was built in the void, from the wreckage of 1,000 dead worlds. Built by humans who refused to die quietly." "What do you mean?" 50 years ago, Earth sent exploration ships to the far edges of the galaxy. Most were lost to navigation errors or equipment failures, but some of us found something else. We found the Vorthok. Admiral Subin felt cold. 50 years ago. But the Vorthok only reached human space recently. The Vorthok have been expanding for centuries. They reached the edges of human exploration long before they reached Earth itself. My ship, the Venture, was one of the first to encounter them. "What happened to your ship?" "It was destroyed. My crew was killed. I was captured and taken to a Vorthok slave world." Kyungsu's voice became very quiet. "I spent 3 years in their camps, watching them break the spirits of beings from 100 different worlds, watching them erase entire cultures." "How did you escape?" "I didn't escape. I was rescued. By others like me, humans who had been captured, but who had found a way to survive, a way to become more than human." He paused, looking around the room, at the faces staring at him. "We learned from every species the Vorthok destroyed. We took their knowledge, their technology, their memories. We became something new, something that could fight back." Dr. Hyjin studied the medical scans of Captain Kyungsu with growing amazement. His body was human, but modified in ways she had never seen. "His nervous system has been enhanced with some kind of biomechanical interface," she told Admiral Subin. "His brain shows neural pathways that shouldn't exist, and his its blood contains microscopic machines, nanobots, millions of them. They're repairing damage, enhancing his abilities, connecting him to ... something." "Connecting him to what?" "I think he's linked to his ship, not just as a pilot, but as part of its operating system." Admiral Subin thought about this. "Is he still human?" "That's a good question. He's genetically human, but he's been changed so much that he might be something entirely new." In the meeting room, Captain Kyungsu was explaining about his ship to the assembled officers. "The Baekdu is not just a warship," he said. "It's a living synthesis of technology from every species the Vorthok have destroyed. When a world falls, we try to save what we can. Knowledge, culture, sometimes even the consciousness of the dying." "You're saying your ship contains the minds of dead aliens?" Captain Junho asked. "In a way, yes. Their knowledge lives on, and our systems, their desire for revenge drives our weapons. Their hope for freedom guides our actions." Engineer Dongwu looked confused. "How is that possible? When you've watched as many civilizations die as we have, you learn to preserve what matters. We don't just fight the Vorthok, We carry the memory of everyone they've destroyed. Lieutenant Eugen stood in the weapon control room of the Baekdu, her hands moving over controls that seemed to respond to her thoughts. She had been born on a ship in deep space, raised by the survivors of a dozen different worlds. Her body was enhanced like Captain Kyungsu's, but her modifications were different. Target acquired, she said, her voice carrying to every part of the ship through the neural link. Vorthok Patrol Group, 6 ships, approaching from Sector 4. Chief Engineer Won-Sik, who was more machine than human now, responded from the engine room, weapons charged and ready. Stealth systems active. The Baekdu had been watching the Vorthok for weeks, learning their patterns, studying their weaknesses. Now it was time to show them what they faced. Fire, Captain Kyungsu ordered. The Baekdu's weapons were not like normal ship weapons. They did not fire energy beams or missiles. Instead, they reached out and touched the Vorthok ships, changing them from the inside. The first Vorthok ship began to shake as its own systems turned against it. Its weapons fired randomly, hitting its companion ships. Its engines overloaded, tearing the vessel apart. The second ship tried to flee, but its navigation system had been corrupted. It flew straight into an asteroid field, where it was crushed by the rocks. The remaining 4 ships fired everything they had at the space where the Baekdu had been, but the human ship was no longer there. It had folded space around itself, appearing behind the Vorthok formation. One by one, the Vorthok ships died. Not from explosion or fire, but from their own technology being turned against them. Their computers went insane. Their life support systems failed. Their weapons melted their own hulls. In less than 5 minutes, 6 Vorthok ships were gone. The Baekdu had not received a single hit. Warprime Kruvax watched the destruction of his patrol group with growing rage and fear. His ships had been destroyed by an enemy that seemed to know exactly how Vorthok technology worked. How did they do that? He demanded. Unknown Warprime. The enemy ship seemed to take control of our vessel's systems. It turned our own weapons against us. That's impossible. Our technology is encrypted, protected, secure. Not secure enough. Apparently, Kruvax had seen the recordings from the battle. The enemy ship had moved through space like it owned it. It had appeared and disappeared at will. It had destroyed 6 heavy warships without effort. Send a message to all fleet commanders, he ordered. We face a new enemy. One that knows our weaknesses. All ships are to increase security protocols. No ship travels alone. Yes, Warprime, but even as he gave the orders, Kruvax knew they wouldn't be enough. The enemy ship had technology that was beyond Vorthok understanding. It had weapons that could turn their own ships against them. For the first time in his long career, Warprime Kruvax was afraid. Back on Sanctuary Base, the news of the Baekdu's first victory spread quickly. The impossible had happened. Someone had destroyed Vorthok ships without taking any damage. 6 ships, Admiral Subin said to Captain Kyungsu. You destroyed 6 Vorthok ships with 1 vessel. We've been watching them for decades, he replied. We know how they think, how they fight, how they build their technology. We know their weaknesses because we've learned from everyone they've killed. What happens now? Now we begin the real war. Not the desperate defense you've been fighting, but an offensive that will drive them back to their own space. Captain, Junho looked skeptical. 1 ship against the entire Vorthok Empire, not 1 ship. 12. The room went quiet. There are 12 ships like the Baekdu Kungsu continued. Each one carries a crew of survivors, each one built from the knowledge of the dead. We've been waiting for the right moment to reveal ourselves. Why now? Because the Vorthok are about to launch their final sweep. They want to end the war quickly, crush all resistance at once. But they don't know we're here. They don't know what we've become. Captain Kyungsu stood up, his strange eyes looking at each person in the room. We are no longer just human. We are the voice of every species the Vorthok have destroyed. We are the memory of every world. The 12 ships moved through space like ghosts. They appeared in different star systems at the same time, striking Vorthok supply lines with deadly precision. What had taken the Vorthok Empire 100 years to build was falling apart in weeks. Tactical Officer Seo Jun stood in the command center of the Baekdu, watching multiple battles happen at once. His mind was connected to all 12 ships through the neural link. He could see every fight, plan every move, coordinate every attack. Target the fuel depot at Kepler 7, he said to his sister ship, the Halison. The supply convoy will be defenseless. Understood, came the reply. Moving to intercept. 3 star systems away, the Halison appeared near a massive Vorthok fuel station. The station was bigger than most moons, filled with enough fuel to power 1,000 ships. It was heavily defended, but the defenders never saw the attack coming. Halison didn't fire weapons. Instead, it sent out a signal that made the station's own security systems go crazy. The automated defense guns turned on each other. The fuel storage tanks began to leak. The station's computer started sending false alarms and shutdown commands. In 10 minutes, the station was destroyed by its own defenses. The Halison vanished before the Vorthok reinforcements arrived. Navigator Bira piloted the BIC-2 through folded space, moving between dimensions that normal ships couldn't reach. She had been enhanced more than most of the crew. Her nervous system was connected directly to the ship's navigation computer. Next target is the command base at Rigelfor, she said to Captain Kelsu, but they're expecting us now. They have 50 ships waiting. Let them wait, Kelsu replied. We're not going to fight them, we're going to make them fight each other. The BIDO appeared at the edge of the Rigel system, just long enough to be detected. The 50 Vorthok ships moved to intercept, but the human ship was already gone. What they left behind was a signal, a virus that infected the Vorthok communication network. Slowly, quietly, it began to change their orders. Ship commanders received false targets. Navigation systems got wrong coordinates. Weapon systems began to malfunction. The 50 Vorthok ships began firing at each other, each crew believing they were fighting the enemy. By the time they realized what was happening, half their fleet was destroyed. The Baekdu never fired a shot. Warprime Kruvax stood in his command center, watching reports come in from across the galaxy. Everywhere, his forces were being destroyed by an enemy that seemed to know exactly what they were going to do. How many ships have we lost? He demanded. Over 300 in the past month, his chief officer replied. And we haven't destroyed a single enemy vessel. How is that possible? They don't fight like normal enemies. They don't try to destroy our ships with weapons. They turn our own technology against us. They make us destroy ourselves. Kruvax looked at the tactical display. Red marks showed where his forces had been attacked. The pattern made no sense. The enemy struck everywhere at once, but never where they were expected. They're not just random attacks, he said slowly. They're cutting our supply lines, destroying our communication networks, making it impossible for us to coordinate our forces. What do you want us to do? Pull back all ships to defensive positions. No more offensive operations until we figure out how to fight these demons. For the first time in Vorthok history, they were retreating. On the slave world of Vortho Prim, something strange was happening. The mind control broadcasts that kept the slaves obedient had begun to change. Instead of commands to work and obey, they were hearing something else. Remember who you were, the voice said in dozens of languages. Remember your homes. Remember your families. Remember that you are free. A Kalani slave named Jawook stopped working in the mine. For the first time in 20 years, he remembered his real name. He remembered his wife, his children, his homeworld that had been destroyed so long ago. Around him, other slaves were also stopping. A Rigelian woman named Soyoung looked at her hands and remembered that she had once been a teacher. A Centauri man named Teho remembered that he had been a musician. The Vorthok guards tried to restore order, but their control devices weren't working. The slaves were waking up, remembering who they were, remembering why they should be angry. The rebellion began quietly. Tools became weapons. Workgroups became armies. The slaves had been broken for so long that the Vorthok had forgotten they could fight back. But they were fighting back. Now. Captain Kungsu received the reports from the slave worlds with satisfaction. The Baekdu's broadcasts were working. Across the galaxy, the Vorthok's enslaved populations were rising up. How many worlds are in rebellion? He asked. 47 so far, replied Lieutenant Yu Jin. The Vorthok are having to send ships to control their own territory instead of fighting us. Good. Every ship they send to fight slaves is one less ship we have to destroy. Dr. Haijin, who had been allowed to visit the Baekdu, watched the human crew work with amazement. They moved like parts of a single organism, each one knowing what the others were thinking. How do you coordinate so perfectly? She asked. We share consciousness, Yujin explained. Not completely, but enough to work as one mind when we need to. It's how we can fight battles in multiple star systems at the same time. Doesn't that hurt, being connected to so many minds? It used to, but we've learned to bear the pain. We carry the memories of everyone the Vorthok killed. Their voices give us strength. Haijin shuddered. She couldn't imagine what it would be like to have the memories of dead civilizations in her head. The Vorthok Empire was falling apart. Admiral Subin watched the reports with growing hope. For the first time in 100 years, the coalition was winning battles. The Vorthok have pulled back from 15 star systems, reported analyst Minho. They're concentrating their forces around their core worlds. What about their final sweep? Cancelled. They don't have enough ships to launch a major offensive. Too many have been destroyed or are fighting slave rebellions. Subain allowed herself a small smile. How many coalition worlds have been freed? Too many. The Vorthok garrisons are withdrawing to defend more important targets. For the first time in decades, free worlds were actually becoming free again. The tide of war had turned. But Warprime Kruvax was not finished. He stood in his private chamber, speaking to a figure that few had ever seen. The Emperor of the Vorthok Empire, Tholvex, was ancient and powerful, a being of pure psychic energy. The humans have technology we do not understand, Kruvax reported. They can corrupt our systems, turn our weapons against us, make our slaves. Reba, we are losing the war. Then we must change the nature of the war. Tholvex replied. his voice echoing in Kruvax's mind. If we cannot rule the galaxy, then we will destroy it. What do you mean? Activate the core destroyer. If we cannot have the galaxy, then no one can. Kruvax felt cold. The core destroyer was a weapon of last resort. It would collapse the galactic center, destroying billions of stars and trillions of lives. My lord, that will kill everyone, including us. Better to die as conquerors than live as the conquered. Begin the preparations. On the BIDO, Seojun detected the energy buildup near the galactic core. His enhanced senses could feel the wrongness of what the Vorthok were doing. Captain, he said urgently, the Vorthok are powering up something massive. Something that's going to destroy everything. Kung-Su looked at the readings. A galaxy killer. I should have known they would try this. Can we stop it? Not with conventional weapons, but we're not conventional anymore. He opened communication channels to all 12 ships. All vessels. This is Kung-Su. The Vorthok have activated a weapon that will destroy the galactic core. We have one chance to stop them. What do you need us to do? Asked the captain of the Jurison. We're going to do what we've been preparing for all these years. We're going to become one ship, one mind, one weapon. We're going to combine our consciousness and our technology into something that can save the galaxy. The process might kill us all, warned the captain of the Sun. Then we'll die as humans, Kyung-Su replied, but the galaxy will live. The 12 ships began to move toward the galactic core. As they traveled, they started to merge, not physically, but mentally and technologically. The consciousness of all the crews combined into a single, massive intelligence. Dr. Hijrin, still aboard the Baekdu, watched in amazement as the crew began to change. Their individual personalities faded as they became part of something larger. What's happening to them? She asked. They're becoming what they were always meant to be. Admiral Subin replied over the communication system. They're becoming hope itself. The 12 ships moved faster and faster, their combined power folding space around them. They were racing toward the most important battle in galactic history, a battle that would determine whether the galaxy lived or died. Behind them, the coalition fleets followed, but they all knew the real fighting would be done by the humans who had refused to stay human. The final battle was about to begin. As the human ships approached the galactic core, every free being in the galaxy felt something changed. The slaves on the Vorthok worlds looked up at the sky. The coalition forces stopped their celebrations. Even the Vorthok themselves paused in their preparations. Something was coming. Something that would end the war, one way or another. The galactic core was a nightmare of twisted space and dark energy. At its center, the Vorthok had built their ultimate weapon, the core destroyer. It was a massive machine that reached into the heart of the galaxy itself, preparing to collapse every star from the inside out. Warprime Kruvax stood on the command deck of his flagship, surrounded by the largest fleet in Vorthok history. 10,000 ships formed a defensive wall around the core destroyer. He had called back every vessel from across the galaxy for this final battle. Status report, he commanded. Core destroyer charging at 70%. His chief officer replied. Estimated time to activation, 2 hours, and the human ships approaching from multiple vectors. All 12 vessels detected. Kruvax nodded. Let them come. Even if the humans had superior technology, they were still only 12 ships against 10,000 Peters. The mathematics were simple. But as he watched the sensor readings, something strange happened. The 12 human ships began to merge together. Not physically, but their energy signatures became one. Their individual signals disappeared, replaced by something much larger and more powerful. What are they doing? He demanded. Unknown Warprime. The ships appeared to be combining somehow. Inside the merged consciousness of the 12 ships, Captain Kung-Su no longer existed as an individual. He was part of something greater now, a collective mind that included all the crews, all the technology, and all the memories of the dead civilizations they carried. The collective could see the entire battlefield at once. It could feel the pain of every slave on every Vorthok world. It could hear the desperate hopes of every free being in the galaxy, and it could sense the terrible wrongness of the core destroyer. We are one, the collective said, its voice reaching every corner of space. We are the memory of the dead. We are the hope of the living. We are the end of tyranny. The 12 ships moved as one, their combined technology creating effects that seemed to break the laws of physics. They folded space around themselves, appearing and disappearing faster than the Vorthok sensors could track. Target the core destroyer, the collective commanded itself. Stop the weapon. The battle began with the fury of a dying star. The Vorthok fleet fired everything they had at the human ships. Energy beams that could melt planets, missiles that could destroy moons, weapons that could tear holes in space itself. But the human ships were no longer there. They existed in multiple dimensions at once, appearing just long enough to strike before vanishing again. Their attacks were not random, they were surgical, precise, designed to cause maximum damage with minimal effort. Navigator Biora, now part of the collective, guided the merged ships through impossible paths. She could see the flow of time itself, predicting where the Vorthok would be before they knew it themselves. Tactical Officer SEO Gen coordinated attacks across 17 different timelines, striking the enemy in the past, present, and future simultaneously. His enhanced mind could process battle data from all 12 ships at once. Lieutenant Yujin had become something more than human. Her consciousness was spread across all the weapons systems, turning every shot into a work of deadly art. She could feel the fear of the enemy gunners, taste their desperation, and use it against them. On Sanctuary Base, Admiral Subin watched the battle through long-range sensors. The readings made no sense. The human ships seemed to be everywhere at once, fighting a battle that existed in multiple dimensions. "How many Vorthok ships have been destroyed?" she asked. "Over 2,000, replied Analyst Minho. "But the core destroyer is still charging. It's at 90% now." Dr. Hyjin looked at the energy readings with growing horror. "If that weapon activates, it will create a chain reaction. Every star in the galaxy will collapse into black holes. Nothing will survive. Can the humans stop it?" "I don't know. They're fighting on a level I don't understand. They're not just using advanced technology, they're rewriting the laws of physics themselves." Deep in the core destroyer, Emperor Thulvex felt the human ships approaching. He was ancient, older than most civilizations, and his psychic powers were beyond measure. But as he touched the minds of the collective, he felt something that made him afraid. "They are not just human," he whispered to himself. "They are the voice of everyone we have killed. They carry the souls of the dead." The collective broke through. The Vorthok defensive lines, like they were made of paper. Ship after ship fell to their impossible weapons. The Vorthok fired desperately, but their shots passed through empty space where the human ships had been moments before. "Core destroyer at 95%, reported Kruvax's chief officer. Firing sequence initiated." "Stop them," Kruvax screamed. "All ships, concentrate fire on the human vessels." But it was too late. The collective had reached the core destroyer itself. The 12 human ships surrounded the massive weapon, their combined consciousness focusing on a single task. They could feel the weapon's power building, sense the terrible energy that would destroy everything they had fought to protect, but they also felt something else. The core destroyer was not just a weapon, it was a prison. Inside its massive structure, Emperor Thovex had trapped the psychic energy of every being the Vorthok had killed. Billions of souls, held in eternal torment to power the weapon. "We see you," the collective said, its voice reaching into the weapon itself. "We remember you. We will free you." Instead of destroying the core destroyer, the human ships began to change it. Their technology reached into the weapon's heart, not to break it but to transform it. The energy that was meant to destroy became energy that would liberate. "What are they doing?" Kruvax demanded. They're freeing the souls," his chief officer replied in amazement. "The weapon is releasing all the psychic energy it contained." The liberation of the trapped souls created a wave of energy that swept across the galaxy. On every Vorthok world, the slaves felt their mind control devices shut down permanently. The psychic chains that had held them were broken by the voices of the dead. But the wave did more than free the slaves. It reached into the minds of the Vorthok themselves, showing them the truth of what they had become. For the first time in centuries, they remembered who they had been before the Empire consumed them. Commander Taman, watching from his ship, saw Vorthok vessels across the galaxy simply stop fighting. Their crews were remembering their original cultures, their lost identities, their forgotten humanity. "They're surrendering," he said in amazement. "The entire Vorthok fleet is standing down." Warprime Kruvax felt the wave hit his flagship. Suddenly, he could remember his childhood, his family, his people before they became conquerors. The pain and guilt of 1,000 years of killing crashed down on him like a tidal wave. "Stop the weapon," he whispered. "Stop everything. What have we done?" Emperor Thulvex tried to maintain control, but the collective's power was too great. The ancient being found himself face to face with the consciousness of every victim he had ever created. "You have caused enough pain," the collective said. "Your time is over. You cannot destroy me." Thulvex replied. "I am eternal. I am power itself." "We are not here to destroy you," the collective said. "We are here to heal you." The human ships surrounded the Emperor with their combined consciousness. Instead of attacking his mind, they began to repair it. They showed him what he had been before. Power corrupted him, reminded him of the being he could become again. Slowly, painfully, Emperor Thulvex began to remember. He had once been a peaceful creature, a guardian of his people. The transformation into a conqueror had been gradual, each victory making the next one easier, until he had forgotten why he had started fighting in the first place. "I remember," he said, his voice now weak and broken. "I remember what I was, what I chose to become, what I must choose to be now." With his last act as emperor, Thulvex dissolved the Vorthok Empire. He released every slave, recalled every fleet, and ended the war that had consumed the galaxy for over a century. Then he faded away, his consciousness finally finding peace. The 12 human ships began to separate, their individual crews returning to their own bodies. But they had been changed by the experience. They were no longer completely human, but they were no longer completely alien either. They had become something new, guardians of the galaxy. Captain Kung Su stood on the bridge of the Baekdu, looking out at the stars. The war was over, the galaxy was free. But the price had been high. What happens now? Asked Lieutenant Yu. And now we watch, Kung Su replied. We make sure this never happens again. We protect the peace we've won, and if another threat emerges, then we'll be ready. We carry the memories of everyone who died fighting for freedom. We won't let their sacrifice be forgotten. Across the galaxy, the news spread quickly. The Vorthok Empire was gone. The slaves were free. The war was over. On Sanctuary Base, Admiral Subin received surrender messages from hundreds of Vorthok commanders. They were asking for help, for guidance, for forgiveness. The empire that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries was asking to be taught how to live in peace. What do we tell them? Asked Dr. Haijin. We tell them the truth, Subin replied. That freedom is not just the absence of slavery, it's the choice to be better than what you were. Captain Junhu sent his final report to Earth Command. The war is